All right, so you've made the decision. You want to keep big fish. You want to keep big monster cichlids, like some of the ones I'm keeping here in this 300-gallon behind me. Well, before you make that final move, let me share with you a few things that you have to keep in mind before you get into big monster cichlids, in particular African cichlids. Let's take a look at it. So point number one, you're going to need to decide, do you want to grow them out or do you want to buy them as colored up adults? The problem with growing them out is, first, some of them are not going to make it and you're going to have to start over again with that particular fish. Second, determining whether it's a male or female when they're very young is a bit of a crapshoot. It's a little bit of, well, let's hope and keep our fingers crossed. And when I was growing out cichlids, rather than buying them as colored up adult males, I would buy 3 or 4 and then sort of keep the pick of the litter and keep my fingers crossed that at least one of them was a spectacular male. So you need to decide. If you go the route of growing them out, it's going to be a lot less expensive, but at some point you're going to have to get rid of some of the fish that you don't want. And it's going to be a long time before you can really enjoy a fully grown out, fully colored up male. So that's a decision you need to make up front. If you decide to grow them out, you can actually start with a smaller tank. And that goes into point number 2, which is tank size. And you can start with, let's say, a 55 maybe, and stay in that 55 for a considerable amount of time until they start to put on some size, at which point you can then upgrade them to the 125 that you see very commonly with cichlid keepers, a tank that is 6 feet across. And that's something to keep in mind. You are going to need a bigger tank. You're not going to be able to stay in that 55 gallon, that 75 gallon. You're going to get to a point, especially if you have fish like a trout or perhaps even a sand diver, fish like that, some of the nimbochromis, like the living stone eye, you're going to need a lot of swim space, a lot of real estate. And so look at the place you're in. If you don't have the footprint, the space, the real estate to put down a tank that is at least 6 feet across, you are going to run into a problem at some point. Another important point to consider when considering getting into big cichlids is the concept of aggression. I've seen a lot of folks over the years who have left cichlids because they got tired of fish getting beaten up, fish getting killed, waking up in the morning, coming downstairs, and a fish has been torn to shreds. That is an unfortunate reality of keeping big cichlids, is there is going to be aggression, and it takes time, it takes patience, it takes removing fish, adding fish, isolating fish. I personally have found that timeouts, isolating the fish, then putting them back in, things like that, even redecorating the aquarium, pulling out decor, lowering the temperature, feeding them a little extra. All these tips that you hear, ultimately, in my experience of keeping aggressive fish, have not worked. The only thing that's worked really is continuing to add and swap and pull out the real jerks until you end up with a group of fish that actually can get along. I'm at that point now. For just a second there, the Buccochromis rhodesii yellow was starting to show some qualities of being a jerkfish, but he has mellowed out. So keep enough fish so that they can keep each other distracted with each other, and that has really, and give them enough real estate, enough space, so that they don't feel like they can get cornered. And maybe have, in my case, I have one, in the case of this plant here, I have one thing that will break the line of sight, so a fish can kind of take a little break behind it. But for the most part, I've gone more to an empty landscape, so that there's nothing really for the fish to claim, like, okay, this is my territory. All right? Another point to consider, filtration. You're going to need a lot of filtration because big fish produce a lot of waste. This tank here has both a sump and a Fluval FX6. It's able to keep up with the load of these fish, but that's a big investment. That's a lot of time. There's a lot of maintenance involved over time. I've set it up in a way so that the maintenance is reduced with the use of pre-filters. And on the case of the sump, I'm using socks, which work as in my opinion, the best pre-filter you can imagine. So the maintenance is as reduced as it can be, but there's going to be a lot of waste. You're going to need water changes. You're going to need very powerful high levels of filtration with lots of water turnover, right? You're going to need to run a lot of water through filter media, through sponges in my case, and to get the kind of water quality that you're really happy with. So it's a lot of work. It can be very frustrating, especially when things like aggression come up. It can be very expensive if you're starting to buy some of the more exotic varieties that you can't find locally, like things like perhaps a very nice a Kawingi, Crystalgaster, a Malawi hawk. I mean, there's some of these fish, they're just not available locally, and unless you're fortunate enough to be near a provider of African cichlids that provides that kind of fish. But so you're going to have to order from a vendor. In my case, all the fish you see in here are from the Cichlid Shack in Tempe, Arizona. It happens to be a sponsor of my channel, so you can't beat the deal I get, but you will, if you want certain key fish that are not available locally and you want them grown up, you want them to be as adult colored up males, don't be surprised at prices like $40, $50, $60 for one fish, and then you're going to have to pay another between $30 and $50 for shipping. So it's a commitment. It's a commitment. If you want the more exotic varieties and you want them already grown up and colored up. Now, in no way is this video trying to discourage or dissuade you from getting into large monster African cichlid fish. They are absolutely stunning. They are by far my favorite fish because of their fearlessness, their interaction, their colors, their variety in shapes, and they're just amazing fish. If your temperament is one for the points that I've covered, you can deal with aggression. You're not afraid of the cost. You can expand into larger tanks. You're not afraid of high amounts of maintenance. You're willing to get into larger, bigger filtration options. If those things all fit who you are as a fish keeper, for sure get into large, monster African cichlids and South American, Central American cichlids too. Why? Because the rewards are amazing. They're absolutely beautiful. They're just beautiful. They're interactive. What can you say? They're just amazing fish. All right? If you'd like to support the channel, be sure to subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up. Hit that bell. Let YouTube know something good's going on. Hey, consider becoming a Patreon, a monthly supporter of the channel. That really helps to keep the project going. Thank you, my friends. See you again soon. Bye-bye.